Hello, my dear Sherry. How are you on this lovely Monday?
Well, probably doing a lot better than half the country right now, but
Yeah.
you guys are a little snowed under here.
Little pretending like we're in the movie Frozen, right? Between the snow and now the wind blowing, and yeah, it's kind of miserable up here in Nebraska. But that, hey, you know what? It's Monday and it's okay. I'm alive and I'm in a house that's warm. So
Right. We were down here with 72-degree weather, and it rained all day, and we actually had a little storm come through, and we had tornado warnings. So talk about bipolar, weird, opposite.
right.
Anyway, yeah. So
Wow.
I am very excited about our guest tonight.
Yes, absolutely. So I have virtually, I guess, known April for quite a while, and I would just like to welcome April. April has a remarkable journey when it comes to her story. She has been living with type 1 diabetes for about 33 years now. April is very resilient in her transformation. She's had great success. She also has made a very bold dietary shift, and we will get into that and how she has done it. But also we have conversed back and forth numerous times in regards of her journey, in regards of what I've done, and how she's kind of, implied that with what she's done to help with her mental clarity, to help with her nervous system, but as well as the dietary choices. So the journey into her wellness and her transition from um, into a higher fat approach, and also the aspect of the knowledge that she has gained. So without further ado, of course, we will end up and go into all of this great success that she has had. But let's welcome April to the podcast. Hello, my dear.
Hi, ladies. Thank you for
How
having me.
Absolutely welcome.
Thank you.
So yeah, we've talked about different things back and forth in regards of your progress, your journey, the different dietary approaches, because we kind of go, against
The
or
norm.
question the status norm, right?
Yeah.
Especially that is being put out there. But tell us a little bit about your story and your journey, especially with the type 1 diabetes.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I'm 47 years old. I live in Canada. I've been diabetic for 33 years. I'm literally the only type 1 diabetic in my entire family. So it's been really, since day one, I've had to learn a lot on my own. Um, but basically, I've had multiple different situations happen where my health would fall to the wayside. I'd go to the regular doctors, the endocrinologists. You calculate how much carbohydrates you're eating, give yourself the insulin. Stress, that's just part of life. Deal with it, blah, 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 blah. Eat. There was really not that much help out there. And the more different situations I would encounter, I had to do the work to figure out what was happening and how I could then change what I was eating, how I was acting, how I was living, a lot of things. There's been a very, very long list of things that go way back to even when I was 18 years old. And I can think back of just, I can't even remember what my A1Cs were back then, but I don't think I've ever had an A1C under 7 for probably 25 years.
Wow.
Sadly, that was considered acceptable and okay, and way to go, April. It's crazy.
Which is
So what happened to me the first time I actually had something physically go wrong with me, it was IBS. It was my stomach starting to create all these issues. I couldn't eat certain things. I would go to a naturopath, and they were great with, removing a lot of things, and then to explore. Actually, since I've been going to naturopaths, they've really helped me sort of like, okay, this is what the problem is. Let's analyze why. Why is that the problem? And what can we do to create a solution? So I've sort of followed that into my life with everything. Maybe not with their specific advice, but with what I find on my own. I find trial and error really works the best.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, and I
IBS
think you make a great point there, that it's a trial and error. It's an N equals 1, right? It's not
absolutely.
a blanket necessarily that is going to end up and be, you know, something that can be put out there as this is what's going to work for everyone. It is a try this, experiment with this. How does your body respond to it?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because everyone's different. Everyone's at different ages, different stress levels, different life patterns, different locations where they live. Like things are so different for everyone, and not the same thing works for everyone. So through my path, I've sort of discovered I'm really bad with dates, but I think it was like 2017. I'm a hairstylist as well. So what I do for work is very physical. But I was having frozen shoulder starting to happen on this side, on my left side. And the doctor said it's an inflammation problem. That's the number one reason why this is happening. And I just went home, dived down deeply. This is after I had to have cortisone shots. I could not work. I couldn't do up my bra. I couldn't do anything. I reached around like T-Rex. It was ridiculous. Like it was horrible. But so that's when I dove into the low carb, like the really low carb world with, and I searched out and I found carnivore. So that's when I started my carnivore journey. And then right after that, COVID happened. Yay, good times. So anyways, I would say it was 2 weeks after I got my first shot, because in order for me to work, because I work from home as well, I had to have, we decided to do the 2 shots. So I did the 2 shots. I did the first shot. 2 weeks after the first shot, I went outside. I was like blinded by the sun. I couldn't see anything. My vision was super blurry. I couldn't do anything. And even when I came inside, like in my salon, my husband's an electrician, so it's well lit up. But my eyes were suffering. And I went to the eye doctor. Turned out I had a broken, they called it a retinal vein occlusion. So I had a broken vein at the back of my eye. And the only treatment for that is to, sorry, this might give a few people PTSD, because it gave me PTSD. Seriously, even when I think of it, I go into like trauma mode. I would have to sit, look directly at the doctor while he took a needle and put it into my eye. For the first year, it was every 10 weeks. Yeah, it was horrible. I tried to communicate with him, like, is this a lifetime thing? Am I going to have to do this forever? Very vague, because not anyone has really cured themselves of this, like ever. Needless to say, it's been like 7 months now, needle-free. Vein occlusion, 100% gone. That was because of carnivore, 100% because of carnivore.
Now, on the carnivore, I'm going to interrupt your story here. On the carnivore aspect, are you hear many people, especially with carnivore making its movement within the last 4 to 6 years. Now, there's been the zero carb crew out there for a lot longer, right? But really within the last few years, it's really made a big movement. And you hear people a lot of times saying, eat meat like it's your job, eat meat until you're full. How, with the type 1 diabetes, has that carnivore kind of transitioned for you over the path?
Well, in the very beginning, I loved just the less inflammation. I was basically taking the same basal rate, and the basal rate for a diabetic is what covers your body throughout the whole day, all day and all night. Regrowth of tissue, if you, just for anything, any muscle building, insulin does so many more things than just regulate your blood sugar. So I was I think I was like 24 units of basil per day. And I was just sort of eating till I was full, basically, not really paying attention in the very beginning. But I wasn't having, like, I didn't have substantial changes in my A1C. If anything, what I was starting to notice was my stomach was less bloated. Because of the IBS, I couldn't really eat anything. I was reacting to everything. I lived basically on Caesar salads and steak or chicken. And I was 12 months pregnant every time I ate it. It was horrible. But yeah, now it's like in the very beginning, it was just meat. I didn't focus on fat. That wasn't even really a thing. I did the electrolytes. I didn't really have people passing away. So I have that, I really dived into that mind-gut connection to really understand, okay, this is why I'm so reactive. So I also need to calm that down. So when I got really sick in December and January, I think they said I was metabolically dehydrated. I was not absorbing anything. My A1C was 4.9, which they thought was amazing, but I literally could not eat anything. I was throwing up constantly. It was horrible. And it was literally caused by my mental upset, my stress. Yeah,
which
it was
many
horrible.
people don't end up and put enough weight per se into of how our mindset and our mental health ends up and plays a role in our journey, and how our body ends up and holds on to and harbors those emotions and the past and working through that. I mean, I know in the BNC community, we talk about, and we actually have a mental health meeting too. Coach Sly does the mental health meeting because it is that important to end up and break these addictions, break through the mental health. But we also have other ways of working on that parasympathetic side of the body, because it is that important in order to progress. Otherwise, you're going to get to a point, and you kind of started to say that, where you get through the first year and you get to a point where it is getting better until it don't.
Yes.
And then you're stuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So because of all the background work that I had already been doing on figuring out all these different things and how I mentally deal with things, it was just like, this is huge. That, like, my naturopath always said, I can help you with everything inside of your body, but when it comes to your mind, it's up to you to find what calms you and what can help you and what will work for you and what becomes just second nature to you, right? Like that's for me. Like when I started watching your videos, Becky, it was just like ka-ching, just like the light bulb just started dinging. It's like, holy shit. Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. It's real life.
But it totally clicked. It's like, okay, I have always said that my best time in life, and I love being outside, I'm actually a Muskoka girl, so I'm from 2 hours north of here originally. So I grew up, cutting our own trees and having wood stoves and all that fun stuff. And I'm surrounded by snow, usually, not anymore, but anyways. So being outside and just finding what brings me peace and what brings me calm, and watching your videos. And I as well have, I followed a lot of different people along the line, and Sarah Kleiner was someone that I had messaged multiple times about. And the two of you are like twins.
She's a good friend of mine. Yeah. I actually coach.
So I've been grounding now, like every morning. I love it. It's weird because I would always, even when I was working in the hair salon, like I would say to people, I have tattoos. And I'm like, I need to get a tattoo of an ice cube so I can just remind myself to chill out, just calm down. Everything was freaking me out. Like the Keurig water was beeping. Sorry, I got all excited. The Keurig light was blinking and I'd lose my mind, or the cat would not stop meowing. And I thought I wanted to, just bring it outside for the first time ever. But yeah, there was so many different things that were just setting me off for no reason. And I'm just like, this is not normal. This is not okay. And I could feel it in my heart, like I was pounding. So it's brought me down so many different pathways. But the second I stand outside with my tank top and my pants on, but my it actually cools my body down, but it's weird. I actually feel warm.
Yep.
My body feels, yeah, it's so weird.
Yeah, it creates that infrared energy, if you will, that light from within. But so this was after even a year carnivore, you were still feeling this anxiousness.
Oh, this was over a year. Yeah, over a year. So the inflammation was the real reason why I wanted to get the blood sugar down. Always my goal is to get an A1C low as humanly possible, for sure. But I've never really been able to achieve that. And I've never been able to achieve less amount of insulin. So now, start my day off every day. Actually, I'm going to go backwards because I find that my nighttime routine for me is the most important. So I have my Blu-ray glasses that I put on. I typically put them on a little bit earlier probably than I need to, but I'm in Canada and it's so dark at like 4:30. It's crazy. So I put them on, I go to bed. I have my, every now and again, I use a castor oil pack for my liver because I reached out also to Sally Norton in regards to what kind of stress is my job creating to my body. She said, oxidative stress, huge. Definitely your liver needs as much help as humanly possible. So I do that. Maybe not every day, but every other day or so. But when I go to bed and I lay in bed and I close my eyes, I do my thankful list. Like you both have been on my thankful list for 6 months, nonstop, forever. Like seriously, you guys have put the pieces together for me. But I always make sure to thank myself as well too. And that's a huge change for me. Because I think as a woman and as a mom and as a diabetic, it's like, okay, gotta just be alive. But I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be alive enough to take care of everybody else. That was my main focus. And then I find just doing that thankful just every day, I literally fall asleep with a smile on my face, which is weird, but it feels so good. And then I set my alarm in the morning when I'm always up before it goes off. I'm outside. We sadly get first sunrise at 7:50, so I have to wait a really long time to get outside. And it's out there, but I can't see it. Apparently, it's still out there. So I do that, and then I come inside, and I have my breakfast right away. So now the big change with my meat and my fats, I also discovered the PKD
Paleo Medicina group.
Yeah, with Zofia Clemens, and that was awesome. Just to think that if someone is newly diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic, they could make this completely go away if they follow the way she follows, which is a very high fat with organs. I've done the freeze-dried liver. I now have my MK supplements. I've got the beef organs. So thank you for that. Do the 4 a day. But so my breakfast is high fat. I'm basically aiming for every meal to be about, in total, maximum 90 grams of protein and double that in fat.
Per day.
So I always have 2 to 3 pieces of bacon, 1 egg, 2 extra yolks, and a whole lot of tallow. I am trying to stay away from dairy as much as humanly possible. That's the one thing right now that I haven't 100% done, but I know that I'll have better benefits from it because I as well have rosacea on my face. And every time you just go down the rabbit hole, dairy is just not okay for a lot of people, but diabetics especially. Yeah. And me, I can see the reaction. Like when I'm giving myself, so now my basal rate is 12 to 14 a day. That's it.
Which is half of what it was previous.
Yeah. Instantly half. Yeah. So when you're diabetic and you're controlling your insulin, just the fluctuations of the insulin can decrease your body weight quickly. Yeah. So I've never really been heavy per se, but I fluctuate like an 8 to 14, somewhere in there. Now I'm about a 10. So I'm just kind of normal. That's not my issue. I really want just my health. When my blood sugar was even 6, like I just felt nauseous all of the time. It was absolutely horrible. And now I actually need a hobby because I have so much energy. I don't know what to do with it.
And that's what I was talking with the coaching client the other day. I'm like, you almost feel like an Energizer bunny. I'm like, it's not a ADD or ADHD. Not that there's anything wrong with those labels, right?
Yeah.
But that sporadic attention span is not the energy that we are talking about. It's like a laser focused energy, mental clarity that is coming along with it. And so that is one of the hardest things, I guess, for people to comprehend is, so just to kind of recap the aspect of your journey here. So you switched off of meat, you did almost a 2-to-1 fat to protein. You cut your basal insulin in half, obviously not with me, but with your endocrinologist. Just want to put that out there for anyone that is watching, that I am not the medical professional. She did work with her doctor on decreasing that and decreasing it appropriately. But just the aspect, what about like the muscle cramps, restless leg syndrome that you were dealing with?
Oh, okay. So when I was eating high protein, I'll just shoot off like a bucket list of things that I was having. I thought I was full-blown menopause. Like I would wake up in the morning and my shirt was soaked through. I was sweating like insanely. I'm like, what is happening? And I would look at I wear a Freestyle Libre number 2, so I can see what's going on. It's like, why is that happening? Like that literally didn't make no sense to me at all. Dr. Bernstein's wrote a book about how to dose for protein, because even now when I talk with my endocrinologist, he's not familiar with how to do that. And I can think of like years I've been diabetic and I've been eating protein and I haven't been giving myself the right amount of insulin for even what I'm ingesting. It's crazy. So I was having the hot sweats, just the scatterbrain still. Like I would literally take my glasses off my head and go, where are my sunglasses? I can't find them. And they're right there. It's horrible. Like memory was bad. My leg cramps, I had restless leg cramps, gone. Like that was horrible. I can't tell you how many times I've been 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. I'm downstairs, I'm hopping my legs up and down. I actually got one of those massage guns to massage it, thinking that would help. Nothing would help. It was absolutely horrible. What else with high blood sugar or the high protein? Yeah. Oh, and I would still have teeth problems. As a diabetic, for me, I was always like, ooh, I'm good. My eyes are good. My hands are good. My feet are good. Nothing's wrong with me until my eyes went wrong. But my teeth I would have like a high amount of acidity in my mouth for this, that, or whatever reason. And bacteria would form in my mouth and decay would start to happen pretty quickly. And that still continued while it was high protein. A little less tartar and all that, but still having decay happening. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's fine. And so when you ended up and you shifted that, your sleep improved, the hot flashes, let's just do a comparison between the two. So you had all of that dealing with the higher protein. Once you ended up and switched to the higher fat, how long did it take?
Sorry.
That's right. Once you switched to the higher fat, how long did it end up and take before you seen a lot of these things that you were still dealing with reverse?
I would say 3 weeks. Like fast. Oh, and the other thing that I didn't mention, the entire time I was high carnivore, high protein, I had the runs basically the entire time. So which then, how do you get your balanced electrolytes with that? Like it was horrible. So I was always running around trying to figure out which is off balanced. But yeah, it was immediate. I had already done this lifestyle for so long and I love crispy, fatty. And I found so Dr. Zofia, she suggested all these specific meats that were specifically like already naturally 2-to-1. And that's what I would prefer to go to. I did your tallow sticks. I found a mint chocolate flavor that I add just to hot water. So good. Even my husband loves it. And yeah, so now it's crazy. Like I'm having breakfast, lunch, dinner is always like I use chicken feed and I make like a really amazing collagen. When it's done, the entire thing is jelly. It's amazing. So I throw extra tallow in with that and I have some of that broth for dinner at night. It's just like I'm swimming in a pool of calm. Like it's crazy when I'm in bed. It's weird. Seriously, no, but the whole racing the mind, like I was looking for all these different tricks of like, how can I stop my mind from just telling me what to do instead of the other way around, right? Yeah, it was awesome.
And so when you ended up and gained this clarity, and switched to the higher fat, did you get any pushback from your husband in regards of what are you doing? You need this protein, right? Because that's one of the biggest things that we end up when we get, and is the big narrative that is being pushed on social media right now, is you need this complete protein. You need these, amino acids. You need this amount, the 1 gram per pound ideal pound of body weight or whatever. I mean, I know there's some people that will do, kilograms and 2.2 kilograms, or if you're, exercising, you need even more. Yeah. And I think that is one of the biggest things that you said, because a lot of people don't end up and take that into account. It doesn't matter really whether it's a complete protein or an incomplete protein when you are dosing the insulin or having the insulin response in regards to that protein. So even simple things, and I know I've talked with other type 1s and as well as type 2s in regards of even things like the bone broth. People that are consuming a lot of bone broth, but not taking into account the fact that it does have protein in it.
Yeah. I have, okay. So my husband, he's chill. Like he's totally cool with what I'm doing because we've been together like 18 years. So he's seen in the very beginning, actually, when we met on a blind date, he came to he thought they were chicken strips way back when. And I used to make tempeh, which is tofu, anyways, yeah, he's been through it all with me. And he's super supportive. Yeah.
Awesome. And so do you notice as a type 1, like I was saying with my clients, that you have to dose accordingly, even for things like the bone broth and stuff?
Yeah. So I use the Chronometer app. Basically, everything's in there. And some people might find it hard being a type 1 diabetic, especially when you're not reading from a package. Like that's when I think a lot of younger people go to that direction because it just has the numbers there for you. So it does require you to do your own work and to do your homework always. So I have a weigh scale. I weigh how much that is, whatever it is, and then I calculate basically in Chronometer how much. So I know for and everyone's different, but for 1 unit of insulin based on how many carbs, and I use the same carb ratio for protein, but then I use it's the Dr. Bernstein solution formula. If anyone has any questions, they can type it in there and I can answer that. I won't go too deep into that, but I'm taking basically 2 units for a meal. And the first unit is right as soon as I'm eating it. And the second unit is, depending on what it is, how long it takes for that food to digest. So typically I'm 4 to 6 ounces per meal of meat, if that, unless it's eggs and bacon. And it's still 2 units. So I'll take 1 unit as I'm eating it. And so for like eggs and bacon, it'd be 2 hours later, I give myself the extra 1 unit. The idea is to keep the numbers as small as possible, so there's less risk of going low and or going too high. And I've been able to just sort of cross the line. It's been great. That as well creates a mental clarity. Just calmness.
Yeah. I was to say, the clarity that comes when we're not spiking and then creating those valleys or creating the reactive side of the the blood sugar after a meal, because ultimately it is about the time under the curve. And that's one of the biggest things that many diabetics specifically don't realize is protein specifically isn't going to cause necessarily the same reaction and the same high as
No.
carbs do. You're going to, with carbs, get that initial response, right? But the time under the curve with protein is going to end up and be longer, but you're still dealing with that rise. And that's how I was specifically when I first learned, figured mine out. I knew what my blood sugar could run and how it should be responding. So why am I constantly elevated and it's staying there, right?
Yeah.
My body wasn't driving that down like it should have been, being very insulin resistant. And so when I flip that around and I maintain that juncture, if you will,
Yeah.
and that tight line, things really ended up and started to improve. But it really wasn't just the nutrition side either. I did have to
No.
take it beyond and do all these other measures, which is why we have, the Beyond Nutrition community, because it does take that. But
Yeah, something I forgot to mention, when I sleep at night, I tape my mouth shut. Breath work is huge. Like before I start working, it's like I've been doing this for 17 years, but I have a strong work ethic, and I don't like to waste people's time. I like to do a good job, and I don't overthink things anymore. But I calm myself down before I do everything that I'm about to do, because it's fun for me. I love my job, but even a positive stress can be a negative stress. I was constantly, like, through the time that I was working, I stopped coffee, that right away, just whoosh. I'm not eating anything at all, and it's just spiking me. Why is that? There's nothing in it. If anything, I had tallow in it, which you would think lower my blood sugar, but it didn't. Yeah, sorry, I'm just rambling on here.
No, I'm going to jump in on that one, because I found the same thing out as you did when it came to coffee. Black coffee with nothing. Black coffee spiked my blood sugar, and a lot, like extreme. And it was kind of sad, right? Because I was like, oh, I have to give up coffee, but I'm okay without coffee, right?
Yeah.
But I found so much more benefits getting rid of coffee. And I also did get rid of the dairy as well, because
Oh, did you?
yeah, because I was the person that had a little bit of coffee with a lot of bit of cream, like a lot. I was actually using dairy as a protein source.
Oh,
which, yeah, and that's a whole nother, my blood sugar didn't like that either. And then, so did you do fasting? Do you do any type of fasting or anything like that?
Life isn't always perfect, so I still have days where if something goes awry or I get sick or something like that, and I have some crazy blood sugars, I won't intentionally ever fast. It's just sort of like I'm not hungry, or I need my blood sugar to come down because of something else. But it depends on the situation. I would say no, not really. Like in the very beginning, kind of, I just stopped eating as much because I wasn't hungry, but I don't set out to fast. If anything, like broth with tallow, I could eat that all day, all night. And that's considered fasting. But to me, that's more filling than if I have steak. It's weird.
No.
So I don't consider that fasting, but I guess it's fasting, fat fasting.
Fat fasting, which is big in our community. I did a whole masterclass in regards of fat fasting, and we'll be doing another one here in probably a month or so,
Awesome.
which definitely helped my co-host too in regards of the fat fasting.
Yeah, well, I found like that, especially like when you're in a turmoil sort of a time, it's just extra calm.
Well, and that's the biggest thing. So it ends up and it kind of hijacks that cortisol. But to kind of go back, and I know Val has a question. And yes, we'll pick up on the 90. I was heading there, Kevin. But with that being said, in regards of the cortisol, when you end up and you have the coffee first thing in the morning, when your cortisol is already rising, cortisol isn't the bad thing because we need it to end up and wake up. It is a natural hormone that we end up and we need to count. I mean, it's like the polar opposite of melatonin, right? So we need the cortisol. It's just when it's rising too high. But the other aspect is when people end up and put that coffee or they put it on an empty stomach, I'm not 100%, we must all give up coffee, right? I'm not against it. Many people have to step away from it temporarily. Many people have to end up and put it even 90 minutes or more after being up. And I know Val is asking how you quit coffee, but then also the aspect of going back and picking up the breath work and calming and getting that in there. And Sherian, you can talk about the results when it comes to blood sugars, because she was wearing a CGM when we ended up when we did the breath work through the BNC community and what she's seen. But how did you originally quit the coffee, or how did quitting the coffee help you?
Originally when I got sick in the December, January time, like anything acidic, like I was having bad acid reflux, I guess. They scanned my stomach. My stomach was almost like a size, almost double the size. I had a really bad infection in there, and it was completely caused by mental just upset. So I basically had to remove multiple things. I quit coffee. I quit anything that was bad. Basically, just stopped it all. Yeah. And I was never really addicted, so I would have like one a day anyway, so it wasn't really that hard for me to quit.
It wasn't as though you were using it as like a stimulant to wake you up first thing in the morning. It was more of a habit than anything.
And it's funny that now that you say that, like eating all that high protein, my husband has an array of photographs of me falling asleep in every chair. I would still, like at the drop of a hat, I could fall asleep at any point of the day. It was horrible. Now that's night and day, like not happening at all. So the balanced blood sugar, the less protein, I felt so like just like I'm 5'10", 5'9" 3/4. So based on the pound of body weight, I would have been having like 150, 160 grams of protein. Like it was insane. That's a lot. And if you're not, I was not a weightlifter. I wasn't metabolically healthy. I was stressed out, all this stuff. It just created this cycle of I was just sort of like, it was almost like I was having coffee. Basically the same sort of results, but with the protein. It's weird.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I noticed when I tried to do the gram per ideal body weight, it increased my blood sugars. My body figured out that, hey, we can turn this into glucose. Like, yay. Keep eating that protein, that large amount of protein. But the other thing, I gained weight. It was not good for me. And until I did adequate protein and high fat is when I started seeing the results. And like you, definitely. I mean, you and I are in the same boat on that one. And like you said, it's not like I have this, ADHD energy that I got to run around, but I mean, I've been under the weather for the past few days with the sinus infection, and I'm still able to do things that before I wouldn't have been able to do. And I know it's because of the way of the higher fat, right? So it's keeping me going. And it's more of like, I have to rest. Like I need to rest. Like I can't, but I want to go over here and I want to do this. And it's like, the body needs to rest. I keep telling myself, Sherry, rest, slow it down a little bit. again, it's not a burst of energy or anything like that. It's a constant energy where, before I would have been in bed, right? Oh, dying. And it just didn't happen this time, which has been interesting. How about you with any sicknesses or anything that's come about since you've modified everything?
I strangely have not been sick for a very long time.
Yeah.
Not since the 2019 it was, or yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. I like you, another backtrack story a million years ago. I've had sinus surgery. I've had a tear duct replaced, and no one said that it was a reason because of the food I was eating. And it all goes back down to mold, citrus fruits, dairy, basically any foods that cause mucus. So that's a lot of why I would go down the rabbit hole of like, why is this a problem? What is this connected to? What is then going to be the solution for that? Like every time something happens to me, that's kind of the way I follow the path. And how can I do this the most natural way and the easiest way? And just, it's cool. There's so many.
Do you miss any certain foods at this point in your journey? Is there any foods where you can go, man, I miss that?
I would say the only food that I have a deep down weakness for, and every girl's weekend, my girlfriend, her side hustle is making cookies, and I'm gripping my hands right now, even talking about it. That's probably my only weakness, but I'm not giving in anymore. I have to remind myself, and I say to myself, like, I'm worth this. I'm doing this for me. Like this, if it's okay to say no to things. I'm really good at moderating. I've never really been just because, like, if my blood sugar does go low, I have to have sugar, like right away. But I keep it. I honestly don't remember the last time I've had a Skittle. That's usually the thing that I use to bring my blood sugar back up. But it's probably been months since I've had a low blood sugar. It's crazy. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Once you figure out, well, so my girlfriend and I and another lady, we do an annual cookie bake, and
I had to look away.
Yeah. If anybody follows me on Instagram, you can go back and look at the pictures.
Oh my God.
So we have 5 stand mixers running the same dough, and then clean them and make the next, like, 5 stand mixers full of dough. And it's insane the amount of cookies that we did.
So I have a weird, my husband, he's totally on board with carnivore. 2 years ago, we have a trailer like you that we go to. We started Bacon Fest, we called it. Mm-hmm. So you can come as long as your meal had bacon included in it. I'm incorporating it into my world with other people slowly. I do find that's probably the biggest thing that I have a hard time with, is not yelling at the top of my lungs all the time about how awesome this is.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I did was, and I did fine. We made the dough. We baked the next day. The Sunday when we were taking our pictures and, getting them all together, and we passed them out to people. In fact, I even sent some to my parents. And I decided I was going to have a sugar cookie.
How did that go?
It wasn't as good as my brain thought it was going to be, for one, but then I had to have another sugar cookie.
Oh no.
My brain still was like, this isn't, maybe one of these softer looking sugar cookies will taste better than that crispy one I just had. So let me try that one. And we're talking about sugar cookies that were, we had little molds that, like, they were tiny. And there I am. And then I'd walk by and I'd come back and it's like, oh, I had another one. And of course I felt ill immediately, not long after. But the next day I woke up, and when I tell you my joints were on extreme fire, the inflammation and the pain that it caused,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I had the same effect, but with emotions.
Yes.
So over Christmas time, I had family come over, and it was all amazing. It was wonderful, but I was sort of in my own head about a lot of things, and I couldn't get my blood sugar to come down, no matter how hard I tried. And I stayed on point. I was carnivore. I was high fat. I did all the good stuff, but it was my emotions. So it was like, no, I need to be outside. So I got everybody to come outside. I stood on the grass. I'm like, this is where I need to be. This is just, we need to chill and kind of kumbaya a little bit. But
and that is, like I said, you know, a lot of these extra modalities that we can utilize into our lifestyle isn't just biohacking.
no,
This is a lifestyle aspect, and I've seen it. Sherry and I were discussing this earlier today, because there's people out there that are like, oh, it's the biohacking. You know, no, it is a lifestyle, and the difference that our body can see when we can incorporate breath work, when we can incorporate tapping, when we can incorporate, you know, just even simply journaling, or sitting in the grass in silence, you know, just being that calm, still, present person, really does end up and make a difference. And it is so underutilized because everyone looks at it as a biohack.
Yeah.
But it's not a biohack. It is a lifestyle aspect that needs just as much emphasis put on it as what the nutrition does.
Absolutely. Same as an umbrella when you go out in the rain, like it's a tool that you use. Yeah.
Yep.
Completely.
And so with all of this, what had, sorry, I was reading the comment in the chat. What has your A1C come down to currently? And I mean, we know that you cut your insulin in half. You no longer dealing with the inflammation. I mean,
no longer getting the eyeball injections. That was my life goal. My A1C last was 5.4.
Good.
Which is good. Yeah, definitely. I still have like, anyone who's diabetic knows when your period comes to town, it's a nightmare.
It's a stress. It's a stress.
It's a nightmare for everyone anyways, but there's always fluctuations, but with it having everything so tight, I can fluctuate with it as it's happening. And I go between wearing an insulin pump and doing insulin injections. The reason I'm doing that now is because I'm taking such less amount of insulin that it's just so much easier to take the injections as opposed to having to have this thing on my body. Yeah, it's lots of good positive things happening.
It's remarkable. It's just, I'm constantly in awe of your journey. I love learning. Like you said, the rabbit holes, but I don't find it rabbit holes. I love learning it from other perspectives. Obviously, you know, I'm not a type 1, but I've done a lot of research and I've looked at a lot of groups, you know, even like Facebook groups, learning.
Oh yeah. I'm part of so many different groups, and I've gotten so much help from so many different people. And eventually you get to the point where I did, where, okay, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm looking for. This is my problem specifically. And using those words, and you can search out so many different things on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, and then one person connects to the next. Like I found you through Baker. Dr. Baker, which is where I found Zofia Clemens. And it's awesome. And it's amazing that, thank you, both of you, for just answering questions as well too, right? Like you're just normal people like I am, but it feels like, I don't know. I feel like there's lots of people out there that are super healthy, work out a lot, and I don't know if they've acknowledged the stress in their life or they're not there yet. I don't know. And I know women in particular, especially with their hormones, because that's where I started to think about the high fat, all the hot sweats and stuff. I'm like, what's going on with me? Like, seriously, on my girls' weekends, all we talk about is like, oh my God, is this happening to you? Yes. What about you? Oh my God. Like, this is crazy. Why don't we know anything about this? And now it's like, I don't have any stories to share now. I love to share it, but I'm good. Everything is just, it's weird. It's hard. I found it difficult a little bit to get used to how much fat, which is why I specifically search out for the meat that naturally comes with a lot of fat.
Yeah. And to answer Val's question, no. Type 1 will have to take insulin. Your body
Always.
is not producing the right cells, the beta cells, to end up in. Yeah. It's just, you'll have to be on the insulin, but it's the amount of insulin. And that's where pushing back against mainstream medical is important, because mainstream medical ends up and carbs and cover, or food and cover, instead of let's look at your nutrition that you're having.
Mm-hmm.
And, oh, hey, we can have less. That is the biggest takeaway, I guess, that I would, like to share, is this perspective of type 1s can end up and use less insulin if you just look at your lifestyle and you set these foundations down, because there's a lot of people out there that will end up and push back when it comes to the biohacking and the foundation. They look at exercise, sleep, and nutrition. But if you can end up and push back and look at these lifestyle of the circadian to regulate the hormones, the grounding for the parasympathetic, along with breath work, and make this a solid foundation, you can and will be able to end up and lower that insulin that you are required to have.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And there is a lot of pushback. I have the endocrinologist who wrote the Diabetics for Dummies version, and we battled it out a few times, but now he's open to talking about it. He said, you're doing great no matter what. Like, I stopped taking, it took about 4 years for him to finally say, the Crestor and the Ramipril that you've been shoving down my throat for years, I have not been taking it. I've been filling the prescription, but I have not been taking it. And you have not given me any feedback to let me know that anything's gone downhill. And I just left it at that and open for him to say something. He said, okay, you're good. Okay. So it's, the doctor world, they're willing to talk with you as long as you are maybe less pushy, or pretend like you're asking them.
Yeah. Rephrasing and coming at it from a inquisitive state versus a authoritative state, I guess.
Exactly. Which I find challenging sometimes, but it's worth it in the end. Like that's another thing that I've always been like on duty, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
right?
very
like
defense mode. But and that is the other biggest thing, though, is many people will end up, and in Western medicine specifically, the doctor will, and I'm not against medicine. Medicine has its time and its place, right? If I end up and I go break my arm, I'm gonna end up and want someone to take care of it.
Oh, yeah, my insulin.
Exactly. But many people also aren't standing up and being that advocate for themselves and feeling like they end up and they have a voice. And that is the biggest thing. It's not necessarily, going demand driven, right? It's more of a, hey, what about, or, doing the experiment, that N equals 1, and they can't argue with black and white. They can't argue with your results.
Yeah.
And once you end up and you go back to them with that, and it's like, hey, these are the results and this is what I am doing. What are they going to tell you? Nope, you need, sorry, no, I'm, not taking that much insulin because I will end up dead, right? If you were still taking the amount of insulin that you were, I mean, your numbers are going to bottom out. You are, I mean, yeah.
And it's if you try to do the catch-up game, like your blood sugar goes from anything above 10, to bring that down slowly, like who has the time? Okay, depending on what insulin you're using, it takes 15 to an hour to work. Who's got an hour to just sit around and wait for their blood sugar to come down? My work is like timed, like I'm just clockwork. And if I'm sick or my blood sugar is high, I need to deal with it right away. So having it normal all the time just makes the whole day so much smoother and calmer. And then, because when your blood sugar drops or it increases, that right there is a cortisol rush. That's an adrenaline rush where you're then going to spike up. I was actually going to mention that first thing in the morning when I get a cortisol rush, I actually don't dose for that cortisol rush. I wait until it comes down, because it's usually about an hour afterwards that I'm about to eat anyway. So I'm not giving myself that extra insulin, because I'll usually go from like 5 or 6 and then it'll go up to 8 or 9 in the morning. But I just sort of let that ride out, because that's first thing in the morning. And then I'm going to go out and do my grounding and look at the sunrise. And by that time, I've chilled right out. So that's something to consider as well, too, for other diabetics.
And for those that are stateside that are using the milligram per deciliter, that's roughly somewhere about a 90 when you're waking up. Yeah. For anyone other than diabetics, I would end up and say, a fasting blood sugar should end up and be a little bit lower. But for diabetics, that is really good for a fasting to end up and have a 5. And to go up. Now, yes, there are maybe some strategies to keep it a little bit lower than the 9 that could end up, but again, it's time, right? And consistency and really working with it as far as making it those lifestyle practices. I'm not where I was 4 years ago, and I'm not where I'm going to end up and be 4 years from now.
No. So, yeah. And I could be the same too, right? Like all of us could eventually get to the point where we're on stage working out and showing our abs and, I don't know, eating more protein and more fat or less fat and less protein. Who knows? Like we might be at different places, but right now this is what just fits everything together.
Yep. I always say that things are interlocked. And it's a big old puzzle, and each piece is just a piece of that overall puzzle.
Oh, yeah. I think, honestly, the food is the only thing that will change. Everything else will remain the same, for sure. Like, if anything, probably more improvements. I haven't been working out, but I work on just flexibility and mobility. Just like moving, just because of my shoulders, just preventing anything in the future from happening and whatever. Yeah, that's just where I'm at right now. I don't want to.
And so nope, you're fine. And so how has the ripple effect of telling the gals at the salon that you work on their hair, how has that ripple effect happened? Or what's the kind of?
It's back and forth. Honestly, I didn't learn about EFT tapping until my client told me about it. And like, I did it the first time and had a full mental breakdown. It's like, this is amazing. And then we talk about it when I go back into the salon, or people tell me about their digestive issues or life and what's happening. And I'm like, okay, are you stressed out about that? Like, how are you feeling? And everyone's super receptive, because everyone can physically see the differences in me, like my energy, my weight, my skin, my just my positivity. I don't have anybody. I did have a negative discussion about cow farts, but I put an end to that pretty fast.
So the other thing that goes around Instagram specifically is the hair loss that comes with low protein. As a beautician, did you ever notice with I realize your hair is short, but
no problem there.
See, that's the way it is with mine. Obviously, it's in a bun, but it is thick. It's healthier strands.
It could remove some of these ones, but
that's
a whole other thing.
overall, I never had the breakage. I never had the thinning, because I do think that we're still getting, the adequate amount of protein, but
Yeah.
just with putting that higher fat in there and balancing the hormones.
Yes. When I did get sick, something that there's like so many things that did happen. I ended up going on desiccated thyroid for about 9 months. And like this instant switch of the high protein to high fat. And I did it through my naturopath. I was testing my own body temperature. Like it's December or January and I'm in Canada wearing a tank top. Like it's obviously not a problem anymore. Yeah. There's been so many improvements.
And more tolerant to the temperature extremes.
Yeah.
I mean, able to go out and do cold exposure and tolerate it and acclimate to it, or vice versa on the warmth. It's not oh my gosh, I've got to pull the layers of clothing off because I'm burning from the inside out hot flash.
No.
But it's more of just a comfortable body temp at a lower room temperature. And
freezing. I was actually more freezing all the time. Mm-hmm. Like in the summertime, I would be virtual with my doctor wearing a sweater. It was crazy.
Yeah, I was that way with the Hashimoto's. I was always cold. Always had, socks on my feet. And I mean, yes, I'm in a sweater, but it's like, I don't even know right now.
You have a crazy storm going. Yeah.
I was to say, we've got 9 inches of snow and 50-mile-an-hour wind outside. It's kind of,
oh, that's scary.
Expected. Yeah.
That's definitely, because I'm in menopause. So I don't have any symptoms.
That's amazing.
I don't have any of that. I mean, the only way I know is if I have blood work done that says, oh, you're in menopause, like that. And of course I don't have a cycle, but, and I do have a cycle around the moon, but that's a whole nother conversation. Right. But, that's another benefit to the, higher fat, adequate protein that we're ingesting is I don't have those symptoms. I don't have any.
Yeah. I had embarrassing, like, I'm trying to say it in a nice way. Anyways, heavy periods, very heavy periods. Didn't want to go anywhere. Didn't want to, like, I would isolate myself inside. That was another thing. Honestly, I was actually a mental case when I was in high protein. Like I would stare out the window at all the stuff that I wanted to do, but I physically wouldn't do it. Like I was mentally like just not there yet. It was so weird. I'm just remembering so many different things now, but yeah, heavy periods gone. Like it's crazy. Like it was embarrassing. It was horrible. I would almost have to quit work certain days where I can't do anything. I can't be around people. It's ridiculous. This can't be normal. And that has somehow evened out as well.
Yeah, I think as I keep talking out on social media about adequate protein, high fat, I am actually getting, I told Becky, I said, oh, I'm ready for the pushback, right? Oh, here we go. I'm getting the opposite. I'm getting people going, oh my goodness, that happened, wow. When I lower, adequate protein and higher fat, I'm better too. Like, it's like people are coming out. Is that what's happened to me? Like that makes sense. And it's like, I'm seeing more people who are, again, some of these influencers and things like that, pushing this high,
well, that's great that they're taking it home and they're, analyzing what's going on in their world instead of comparing to somebody else, like just the end results, kind of like how you got there, but not working for me. I'm okay. And that's okay.
Right.
That's good. It's great.
Right. We're all, I am not Dr. Baker who lifts weights and works out. Like I don't work out right now. I haven't worked out in, I don't know how long now, Becky. I haven't been months. Yeah. And I'm slimming down. Like I'm, it's kind of, but before that I was lifting heavy weights and I was fighting it, but I was also watching my fighting my blood sugar. My glucose was,
Yes. And you will find like a, what was it? Dr. Bosworth or Dr. Boz said, or no, sorry, someone else. After 15 minutes of cardio, and even like you'll notice your blood sugar will raise really fast. Like even if I'm lifting the kettlebells that I have or whatever, I haven't done in a long time, but when I do, I notice it. Like I have a new circadian app that tells me, and it suggests specific times when to work out, when's your best time, and it works perfect. It's like, yes, this is when my blood sugar needs a little bit more, helping hand. And sometimes I don't even have to give myself insulin if I go for a walk, either before when my food is cooking, because it's going to endure while I'm digesting it, or afterwards. Like it can change everything. Exercise. I had a really great family doctor. Sadly, she retired, but from one thing that she stuck with me was like, if you inject yourself with insulin, how's that insulin going to get to every other limb? You have to move. And just walking, just a calm walking is all you need to do just to get your blood moving, just to get the blood flow. And grounding does that for you, just literally standing on the ground.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, and it creates a more free-flowing blood too with the grounding aspect. It's not all, kind of clumped together. It's more free-flowing, and so it gets there a little bit more efficiently too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, like, instead of coffee now, I have I actually got the hydrogenated pills. So I'll drop that in the water, chug it down. It's weird how you're like, okay, let's go. Just a glass of water. It's crazy. Like instant energy. It's awesome.
Yeah. Becky and I both do the hydrogen water bottle.
Amazing.
That we do. So, we're utilizing that. And again, right, that's another thing that's kind of beyond the nutrition, that hydrogen water, like people don't even know.
I got my copper. My husband got me the copper water bottle. Awesome. Yeah. And I've got my, I'm going to say it probably wrong, but the Sheljit is showing up soon. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
And that is another great tool to end up and use in the morning instead of that cup of coffee, because as our body ends up and dehydrates overnight, right? Many of us aren't waking up, or at least I really hope we're not waking up and we're getting that good quality sleep.
Yeah.
But, after you end up and you're not drinking anything overnight, the body's kind of, done its thing. That Shilajit really does help to remineralize the body to start the day, because what is getting that, throughout the body, it's attaching those minerals, and those minerals are driving throughout the body, and the grounding and the difference in the magnetic shift of, the earth, and just all of these modalities that we end up, we use and we make it a lifestyle, has such a profound support to our body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It makes you feel more connected to everything.
Yeah.
Yep. When we're fully aligned, our whole world is just a different view and different perspective. When we align and we work on that mindset and that mental health, it's remarkable. I know I want to be respectful of your time. We had talked about an hour, and we're over that. I feel like we could end up and just chat forever. And I know we did on the phone, right? So being able to just sit and have that conversation. Anything that you want to share with our audience that we maybe haven't touched on that you would like to share?
I would just, the one thing that I have yet to really do is get with a community. And this is sort of my introduction to like chatting with you guys. So I'm going to figure out where I fit into your worlds. And I definitely want to dive deeper into the circadian master classes for sure. But I'm not, I don't really know. Just like everyone figure out why you want to do something for yourself, and that you're worth it. Just you're worth it. Do it. And change is always hard, but it's worth it. It's like once you start to sort of resist, okay, I have a therapist that I go to, and my thing right now that she said to me is just say yes. when I was dealing with a lot of like mental issues, I was worried about so many different things. And when she said, just say yes, just go with the flow and just try it. And don't put a resistance up to things. Everything just goes much smoother. And yeah, it's just try to say yes, try to make yourself a priority, and reach out for help to someone if you have questions, for sure. Absolutely. Because I reached out to a lot of people, and there's so many people out there that are great. You guys are amazing. There's always someone out there that can help.
Absolutely. And if it isn't our community, there is definitely all sorts of communities out there. And like you said, just knowing that you are not alone in this journey, that there is someone that will be willing to reach out and help. I mean, our BNC community that has, multiple meetings per week is phenomenal. It's only $18 a month. So, that is a great sense of community that is affordable for almost anyone. And just knowing that people are, following similar lifestyle, right? We have several in the community, and none of us really end up and do it specifically the same, right? Yeah. Because what works for one may not work for the next. Yeah. But being able to hear that story, like you said, plant that seed so that, oh, they talked about this. Maybe I am at the point or having that light bulb moment. I can't tell you how many conversations we have had in the community. And it's when the person is ready to end up and take that information that light bulb comes on, and it's almost like an aha moment, if you will. Absolutely. And they're ready to end up. And Susan, to answer your question, yes, I also do lemon essential oil in my water. Not necessarily the cayenne pepper, but I personally will do lemon essential oil to kind of flush and then remineralize, and then finish with the hydrogen throughout the day. But all righty, my dear Miss April, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Always wonderful talking and chatting with you, even if it is just, texting back and forth, but
I
appreciate it all. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and telling, your success story, because you're an inspiration out there to type 1 diabetics and among your other issues. And we thank you for that very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.